We in this, let's go! It's the forgotten rock, all about boxing. Yeah, we talking about the greats, no stopping. Round and round, add up the weight. And if it's legendary, then count that pound for pound fate. From Muhammad Ali to Frazier, yeah, that's a combo. Hear the crowd roar, watch him swing like a thunderstorm. George Foreman with the grill and the power to take ya. Hit so hard, man, he just might break ya. Tyson with the fury, a beast in the ring. Shakur strategy, the way he makes a swing.
Hi, Pete Farrow, another edition of Forgotten Rock, and today we have a very, very special topic. We're talking about the late, great Dennis Rappaport, and we have some wonderful guests today. We have his wonderful wife, Linda Rappaport, and we have his son, Tony Rappaport, and of course we have my great co-host, Mr. Kenny Rock.
Hello, everybody.
So here we are. We're going to start talking about the career and legendary achievements of Mr. Dennis Rappaport. And one of his greatest achievements that he accomplished in his life was the Cooney-Holmes fight. Do you remember that fight, Linda?
I do remember it. In fact, it's embedded in my brain. My father at the time had a cruiserweight fighter named Jeff Lampkin, and he was on the undercard of the Cooney-Holmes fight in Las Vegas. And it was very exciting to be there. We were at they had a pool party the night before the fight, and everybody was there from Bill Cosby to Mr. T. And across the room, I noticed this gentleman with a green leprechaun jacket. He had on a lot of jewelry. And I said to my father, I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "That's Dennis Rappaport. He manages Jerry Cooney." And I said, "I want to meet him." So we actually walked over to him, and we started talking, and he was so nice. And a few minutes later, he said, "Listen, I'm really, I got a lot going on. It was a pleasure talking to you." And
Later, right? You
yeah.
guys hooked up and you got married, and that's just a wonderful, wonderful story. I didn't know I knew he was successful. Everybody knew he was successful. That particular, week leading up to the fight or the month before the fight, that's all they talked about was Cooney, Dennis Rappaport, Larry Holmes, Don King. Every night, it was on every channel. It was something special. And I didn't know he was such a swinger because I didn't meet him till later. But could you imagine Linda coming up to you and say, always wanted to meet you or whatever? I mean, and you guys got married and raised a beautiful family. I think that's quite a love story. That's fantastic.
It actually didn't end there, though. So that was one part of it. And then, as you know, Dennis was devastated after that fight because Cooney did not win. And he had so much hype, put every effort possible into that fight. There was training camps in Palm Beach. There was what is it in California?
Big Bear or something, Great Bear or
There
something.
and a couple other places. They went to Bob Hope's home.
Wow.
They did training camps. I mean, it was just every celebrity, every person who was anybody, Ryan O'Neal, Farrah Fawcett, everybody was there, and they wanted to see this fight. Sylvester Stallone, in fact, he came to a lot of the training camps and so forth. Unfortunately, after the fight and that Jerry lost, Dennis was devastated after that. So that was like a big knockdown because I think in his mind he knew and thought that he was going to win that fight.
Well, with a fight like that, isn't there like a lot of added pressure that the average person won't see? But I'm sure Dennis must have felt it every day, like leading up to the fight, and everybody in the world's going to watch the fight. And then, an objective fact, Jerry did lose the fight. And I'm sure that Dennis wanted to get him back into the ring probably before the year was out because that fight happened in June. Probably wanted to happen back in November. What happened? How come there was like no action, no activity from Jerry?
I think a lot of them were, like I said, devastated after that loss because it had taken so much, it was such a hype, it was such pressure, and it was such a letdown to lose something of that caliber. And I think at the time, Jerry just wasn't motivated at that point to come back and get back into the ring and back into the gym. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline to get in there and to train and run those miles early in the morning and do everything that you need to do to be a champion. So at that point, it took a while, and I think his inactivity, was, part of the issues that, went on for a little bit of a time.
I'm sure, though, that the networks had wanted him back right away, though. I mean, because he was a big name. I mean, he's probably the biggest name in sports at that time, or one of them. And yet, like you said, he was kind of sidelined. Did the hype that Jerry's side got for the fight, did that help Dennis's real estate profile? Like, were people calling him because he was a celebrity? I want him to sell me. I know I did. I was bragging to everybody that I bought a condo from Dennis Rappaport. So you imagine if I did it 20 years earlier, back when he was fighting Holmes. Did that help at all? It probably didn't make a difference because he was already.
No, Dennis loved people, and Dennis loved, and took pride in anybody that he was working with from every walk of life.
Yes,
so for him, every deal meant something to him. So he just put his suit back on next day, and he just went, right back to work and just did what he had to do.
I mean, it must have been hard juggling, though, being a very successful boxing manager and also a successful real estate man. I mean, juggling back and forth like that. I mean, he was definitely a genius in tune with the higher consciousness because he was doing really, really successful. Beautiful wife, great son, he had it all. So, I mean, and his legacy is still living on. What did he do after Cooney, after Jerry? What was his, what did you say his accomplishments after that? Before Tony, you were talking about Hasim, not Rahman, the guy that fought Rahman.
2006, he fought Oleg Muskayev.
That was Dennis's fight,
heavyweight championship.
And he won, right?
He knocked Rahman out of the ring.
I remember that. Right out he went. Like, whoa.
They fought twice.
He landed in my lap.
I
said, get up in there. Right?
They fought twice. In the first fight, he knocked him. He didn't knock him out. He actually won in 12 rounds. The following fight, he knocked him out, and he went right through the ropes.
Right.
Landed right at ringside.
But his the belt landed on
right.
The WBC heavyweight champion he was.
Exactly.
I remember this. Rahman and James Toney fought to a draw or something, and they were talking about doing it again. And at the press conference, Dennis stood up and said, "No, my guy is next. If you don't, there's going to be a lawsuit."
I was there.
Right.
I remember.
I remember that. And I like Dennis's guts. I mean, he stood right up to James Toney because Tony was like,
right. We've been waiting. We've been waiting for the title shot.
Yeah. No, James is a great guy. I like him. But that night, I mean, he really started screaming at Dennis, and Dennis gave it right back to him.
Dennis was right. Because we would have lost that fight, we would have lost the opportunity to fight him, and then we probably would have had to take another fight without having a championship fight, and who knows how that would have went,
Right.
So that was nice that Dennis spoke up, and Duva and all of them had respected it, and they set up the fight. And after that, we had the first heavyweight championship fight in the Olympijski in Moscow.
Took it out of here.
And that was under the banner of Putinka.
Right.
And after that, then we came back to fight in Cancun against Samuel Peter.
Right. I remember all this as if it was yesterday. I think that your champion that Dennis had, didn't he lose to Kirk Johnson of Canada? Did he get knocked out? Was that before he won the title or after he won the title?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
It was before.
Yeah.
It was before.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Kirk Johnson. And wow, I mean, like Dennis's legacy will just carry on. And on a personal note, it's not in my business, but I was hoping you were going to keep up with that, like be the next manager of the great, keep the great Rappaport.
If I can get a syndicated investor to open up a string of boxing gyms, I would. We would do something.
Are you the only son?
Yeah.
Oh, how many sisters?
No, that's only
The only child?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Dennis adopted me when he was 45 years old.
Wow.
I moved here from Youngstown, Ohio
Okay.
in 87, and Linda and him met at the boxing fight. A couple years later, they got married in Las Vegas. And then we did the adoption papers. And, secondary to being a great promoter, he was a better father than he was a businessman.
He was a great guy,
Yeah.
though. Very, like, whenever I came to see him, he'd always be like, "Where have you been? Come on in, sit down." And treat you like you were a king. I didn't even have a job at the time, and he was treating me like a king. So I could just imagine, everybody else buying houses. And then when I got back on my feet, I bought a condo from him. And I tell everybody, "Hey, I bought a condo from, Jerry Cooney's manager, Dennis Rappaport." So Great. Let's continue on. And with real estate, how did he get into real estate? What was, how did that turn out?
He, as a child, he started several businesses. His father was in real estate, and his one successful business, he had it was called Dennis's Cookies, and he used to go door to door, and he used to sell
I can see him
cookies.
doing that, but I never
And he
knew.
had
Nice
all
that
these
someone here
kids
right now.
working for him, and they were called, Dennis's Famous Cookies. And he always had a side hustle, no matter what.
He's a hustler.
Yeah, he just kept it moving. And when he was very young, he bought into the real estate for his father, and then
Okay, so his father was into it
his
first. So.
father started it, and then he had a partner, and they started buying specs all over Long Island, Queens, and he was buying up a lot of properties, and then he would rent them out, and then he would sometimes sell them, and that's really how he got his start. So he just kept,
Kept it moving.
kept in the real estate, and he was great at it because he spent so much time with people.
Right.
He genuinely cared.
Right.
And he, whatever their position was, if this was a first time buyer and they needed this house and they were going to not be renting anymore, he really took pride in getting them into their first home.
What year did he go to North Shore? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where was Dennis born and raised?
He was born in
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, New York.
What part of Brooklyn?
I think it was Utica and Church.
Wow. Flatbush.
Nice,
Mhm.
nice.
Okay.
What year did he move to North Shore Towers? That's a beautiful
I think
place.
he moved there, and it was built in 1975, and he was one of the first residents. So I would say about 76.
You work there, don't you?
I am right now. I'm the on-site sales broker for North Shore Towers, but I didn't come until later. And at that point, he was in it with a rental, and then it went co-op, and then he purchased the property.
Wow, he purchased what?
Purchased the property,
The whole-
not the whole
No.
complex.
I'm about to
Just
say,
it's a co-op. So yeah, he bought his apartment. He had a magnificent home overlooking Long Island and New York City, water and bridges. Very lovely.
Yeah, it's
home.
just beautiful
Yeah.
to look at. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never really
Yeah.
been inside that, but just to drive by, you're like, wow.
Yeah, and he was very proud living at North Shore Towers. It was surrounded. It was on an 18-hole golf course, 5 hard true tennis courts, indoor-outdoor pool, a whole arcade of shops, of grocery stores, fruit and vegetable, indoor-outdoor pools.
Are you doing a plug right now?
I
That's
sure
okay.
am. I'm like, Dennis taught me well. What can I say?
You're doing a plug right now. No, it's beautiful, and you're beautiful. Do you remember a gentleman that used to work there? You probably did. I don't know. Mark Belsky. Did you know Mark?
Yes.
You knew Mark
Yes,
Belsky?
yes.
Now, he was a talent manager because a couple of my girlfriends I brought by there, and he was getting them work. But I think he got out of the business, or did he pass
Yeah,
away?
I don't know.
No,
I don't know
but-
what happened to him.
But
Yeah.
you remember the name?
I
though?
do, sure do.
Yeah, I went back there way back in '92. Milford, yeah, it's a long time ago. But that's great. And real estate was his thing, and he kept getting bigger and bigger. And I understand, Tony, you're into real estate, but corporate real estate?
Yes.
God, that even sounds
Commercial
real
real
estate.
I work
right?
with Linda, but I used to do commercial. Advisory work mostly.
That even sounds important. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, like commercial real estate.
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean? Break it down for
So,
us.
like, if you had to structure a deal kind of backwards, so if you wanted to put a tenant in somewhere, what's the plan for real estate? So, what's your plan of action? If you have to pay for a building, you got to come out of pocket with cash, or you got to get a loan. And if somebody's paying you rent, they're chipping away at the principal off the mortgage if you got a note. And you kind of try to figure out a way to structure it where you get rid of all the debts. You know, you're trying to distribute equity and being able to package a deal to represent a deal almost like, you have nuances pertaining to 99-year leases and things like that where you get a really low payment for a long term. It's kind of redistributing that kind of thing back to you. So you just have to get creative with your landscape, like as far as what kind of tenant goes into your real estate these days.
Wow.
You know, you have a lot of technology companies and you have other things you can put in there. So if they have a real estate opportunity built into their model, for example, you have companies like Crunchbase, the venture capital, private equity, and startup companies. So if they started positioning themselves in real estate opportunities, hypothetically, they'd have a value add scenario from existing residualized income to multiplying a formula for income distributed on the asset and on the company and on the business based on the model.
No.
You know,
Did Dennis steer you into this?
Dennis got me into real estate a little bit. I was around a friend of mine, early 2000s.
You sound like a tough guy, by the way. You
look
like a tough guy.
No, he doesn't look like a very handsome guy, but he looks like Dennis, but he talks a lot tougher, you know what I mean? He's like from Sopranos or something.
How many real estate properties do you have? How many did your dad have?
Just a couple right now.
Okay.
Not a lot.
You see yourself buying more?
I would, yeah. I mean, the opportunity is almost just as much value as the real estate. So, like, you're positioning yourself, like I said, with the right opportunity is something. Because why put your time into something? So, if you're going to put your time into something, you want more than money and a payback. You want to be able to see it grow, and you want to see it grow for the right reasons, and be able to see do things for others along the way. You know, hopefully that's like, you know, almost like a technology solution. Let's say, not necessarily a solution to something, but something that's more of a growth appeal or effect to it.
No. You didn't learn that at Hofstra. You had to learn this all
No,
over.
so as I say, so a good friend of mine back in early
He went to
2000s
Hofstra.
was a kind of a street genius. You know, he was a smart kid. He didn't really go to school, and he taught me day trading. And we spent a lot of time doing business, you know, fixers and, you know, conversation about, you know, markets, what makes a market move, what distributes a market more than supply and demand, what correlates, what does all these nuances of movement and mobility. And, you know, your thinking starts to shift and change. So, you know, I came home years later and I was in real estate, and immediately, you know, my mind, the mapping of it just shifted automatically by default. So instead of just, you know, trying to make a buck, I said, what do I want to do with my time? What do I want to do with money? And I realized the money was in the commercial real estate side. Had you make a commission as a broker, you were in the 6 figures, 7 figures. Had you be a developer, you're getting paid 7, 8 figures. Had you be, you know, you position yourself in the right deals and things like that. And then you go up the food chain. And then you have lending. And then you have integration of lending and how to position yourself with financing. And then money, and different than lending as far as equity plays.
Wow.
And being able to position yourself for either short, mid, or long-term growth. And there's still, like, you know, we're up to where we are today, but that line keeps going with or without us. So, you know, there's plenty of opportunity out there. It's just, you know.
He's doing very well.
Right.
Thank you.
I expected as much.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you just focusing on commercial real estate in New York or all over the country?
You're looking more like a more of a aggregate plan for the world. You know, essentially, that's what, if you're going to start somewhere, you'll come up with a great creative idea and bandwidth for line of sight. You know, arm's length reach. Let's say comparative to yourself. You know, what's in your visibility, your region, your state, your country, so on and so forth.
And somewhat comfortability.
But if you map, you know, the plane, you know, we're all in a similar spot. We're all in a similar location, whether it's, you know, chopped up to region or naming. We all have similar background. We all have family, you know. We all grow up together, and we're all kind of, you know, man-built, a lot of these real estate structures around the world. And now you have an opportunity like intelligence is out there, you know, with computing. You know, if they came to market, it would change things significantly, immediately, in a way that, like, it was unbeknownst to us. And yet we've spent all this time having an industrial revolution, having a dot-com boom, having all these things going on, that by the time that comes to market, it's almost different than a rephasing, because it's such an adjustment beyond an adjustment of a restructuring or recalibration of something, because it's so new to us in the point of even introduction. So having that does everything for everybody in a way that we should have had a long time ago. You know, and that's really what computation's here for, is to make sense. You know, being able to crunch the numbers, but being able to put the right data into the numbers to crunch again on itself, to be able to feed back. And you have those kind of scenarios. You have a scenario that structurally it changes everything for all of us around the world. It's really promising.
You say a lot of this with ease. You're not overwhelmed with any of this stuff?
No, not at all.
You've been doing it for years, right?
Yeah.
You've been doing it a long time.
How many years now?
Probably since that time, about 2010.
Oh,
Yeah.
16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you, Linda, you went to Miami to college?
Yes, I went to Miami, and I loved it there. It was great.
But did Dennis go to Miami?
Dennis went to Miami too.
How did he squeeze? I always wanted. That's one part of the
I
Dennis
think
story.
he tried to give it a chance, and I don't think he was crazy about Miami.
No.
He wanted to be back to New York where he can work
Right.
and do his
I
thing.
think he was hustling, yeah.
He was comfortable. I don't think that was really for him.
Are you the same hustler your dad was? Or,
I had an affection or love, passion for business in generality. I liked what it did as an engine, almost like a locomotive. If you saw yourself assembling a train or a plane or a car, if you were an engine maker, and you saw movement before you, it doesn't have to be limited to just business. If you had a more vast space to include on top of that or through that or for that, before that, you'd be a better builder. Having that is key, is a key integration to business.
Wow. Well, he was, like I said, he was a great businessman, as are you.
Right.
He sounded like more of the hustler, though. You know what I mean? Like somebody to get in there and hustle. Because I know from some of his stuff he did in boxing, like, creative.
Dennis was good. Dennis used to run a real estate office, and I spent a lot of years there. So
He went on Linden Boulevard?
Right, through 25th
Yeah.
and Linden in Cambria Heights.
I was born right over there.
And he used to do sales, so he would sell you a house. He would do the listing. He would do the sale. He would do the mortgage. He would do the title. He would do any assistance that they need. If they needed money short term, right away to get by, he would help them out. Whatever they needed, really, in packaging a deal, arranging a deal to make it happen. He was really there, and his essence of being a good guy was really something that he was there for the customer first. He would spend hours going over disclosure things with them just to make sure that he was being fair with them, so they understood exactly what they were doing or how they were getting into. He was just trying to educate them. I don't know if they needed all that time, but he was a good guy. They were wonderful people that came in and out of that office.
Yeah,
And he sold a lot of houses.
Yeah, the salt of the earth. He didn't need boxing to be successful, though.
Boxing was really more of a hobby, but more of a passion, right? And he used to spend time going to the gyms, and he would scout guys, and he loved it. He loved the sport. He liked being in the ring, not to box necessarily, but he liked the action. He loved every aspect of it.
Did he have a lot of business partners? A lot
No.
of people that worked with him when he was into the real estate?
No.
Mainly just him?
He had one partner, two partners years back, and they bought and sold about 30,000 homes all over New York. And this was back in the 70s and 80s. Then when we got into boxing, it was really him. And then his first big claim to fame was, he had a lot of notoriety before this, but the Cooney-Holmes fight was 1981. 82, right, June 1982. And they had a financial split of $10 million each. $10 million for the challenger, $10 million for the champion. Now, they didn't have pay-per-view back then. So you didn't have pay-for-TV. If he would have had pay-for-TV, his numbers would have been through forget about it back then, comparative to what we have today. So that was unheard of. You didn't have a challenger that received the same equality of a champion fight.
I never heard of that.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Him and Don King. And he had a white heavyweight. Rocky movies were out. And, he had a lot of notoriety between movie sales and other things.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
Imagine if Jerry won that fight.
Oh, yeah.
Listen now. And he kept the title for a couple of years, and he fought Mike Tyson. Do you know how big that fight would be?
Wow.
You'd have a lot of white heavyweights today.
I mean, famous though. As famous as everybody is, we're just talking about Dennis, Larry, Jerry. Mike Tyson to this day remains an A-list celebrity.
Yeah.
One of the most famous people in the world. I hang out with him. When you go out in public with him, you get a full crowd just to watch him walk down the street. I'm not saying he's Michael Jackson when Michael Jackson was in his prime, but I'm saying he's the next, I can't think anybody else that draws crowds like Tyson.
Right. Agreed. Agreed.
I've seen it, so I can't,
Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Like Tyson is still.
Tyson.
It's like we just sweep it under the rug.
Right.
We sweep it under the rug and we just say, "Hey, this is Tyson. This is what he's into. We love him regardless."
We were driving down Caesar's Las Vegas Boulevard, and all of a sudden at the spur of the moment, it's a Sunday morning now. Mike said, let's go shopping. We go to Caesar's Palace. There's a mall below Caesar's Palace, like a shopping mall. When he goes in the shop, it's just like four of us in there. A big crowd grew outside. They wouldn't let him in to watch him shop. I've never ever seen that before. And then you hang out with him anywhere.
Did you buy 20 watches too?
Did
Did you try to purchase 20 watches like his other friends do
I'm
sometimes?
so poor I'm getting married just for the rice.
I went to go see him at the Sphinx. I think it was Sphinx 1987.
Yes.
Yeah. And
That was a few years.
88.
And he gave me my first signed game of Mike Tyson's Punch.
Oh wow!
I wish I had it today. I don't
For
know.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fight was over in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
He invited me to Hawaii. He invited me to this Lennox Lewis fight. Some of them BS fights. They called me, pick him up at the airport, stuff like that. And twice this happened to me. One time I'm driving to the yard to go to work. I'm in White Plains yard. Mike calls up, hey Pete, wanna hang out? I said, I gotta go to work. Next week, same thing happened, the exact same thing, but I was at Stanford yard. So I mean, it's like, and then my father was dying, and Mike called him up for me. So it's like a lot of exciting stuff like that we would do. Just a great guy. But speaking of great guys, Dennis Rappaport, his legacy. Let's talk about his legacy 100 years from now. What would you say?
100 years from now. I hope he was an innovator or a something to add some sustenance or substance to boxing on some level, for his own conditioning of his career. I believe his negotiating and promoting an ability to get a challenger to become a champion, and so on and so forth, and then kind of get their next couple fights, build up their name, build up their crowd, just build the notoriety of the character. He took good care of these fighters. He didn't put them in with guys that were ahead of their time, that were mismatched, whether it was on record or size or weight, just to get a fight and put a number next to the number. You had it was more than ethics. It was more of understanding longer term duration, being able to map a fighter's career.
Linda, did you, when you met him at one of the Cooney-Holmes site, you knew he was affiliated with boxing. Did you know he was such a successful real estate man at the same time?
No, so the first fight was the Cooney-Holmes,
Right.
and then the second one I met him again was in '87 at Trump Plaza. Was at
Tyson fight?
no, it was Cooney-Spinks.
Cooney-Spinks, okay.
So that was when I met him, and I actually went over to his hotel. I kind of went after him. I called.
That's what I kind of get from the book.
I called up, and he said, come over for a drink, and my sister and I went over. And,
Right, Sheila was it?
yes, yeah. Sheila, and he actually, you needed a security to get up to his suite because he was in this huge suite. He also was a big gambler, and Trump used to have him send helicopters to bring Dennis down.
Well, him and Trump weren't that tight.
Then they were. Yeah.
What happened there? Was that a real estate thing?
This was before the politics. Dennis, today's Trump is not Dennis's cup of tea, but
Trump is nobody's cup of tea now.
back in the day when he, it was Mark Geddes who got killed in that helicopter crash years ago. He owned Grossinger's. He actually, was always, and Trump was always sending gifts and
I didn't know.
the biggest splashes of whatever he could, with Dennis trying to lure him down there. So when I went up, I said to Dennis, I said, my father's down at the crap table. I said, would you come down and meet him? I said, he's a big fan. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So he went down. He said, do you mind if I take your daughter for dinner? And my dad was like, no, take her, please. And so he said, let's go back upstairs. So we go back upstairs, and he goes, you don't mind if we get comfortable, do you? And I said, oh, no, not at all. And he said, I'm just going to, just take off, my pants. I'm going to relax, and, maybe we can talk. And I was like, wait a second, where's this guy?
Take off your pants to relax?
Exactly. Where's this guy going? So it
Pants
ended
and
up,
shoes?
I said, let me get the hell out of here. So I went to the bathroom, I turned on the lights, and I jumped in a cab, and I went back to my hotel. The next day, my dad goes, well, how did it go and everything else? He goes, did you get tickets for tonight's show? Right away, my dad. And I said, Dad, I didn't even ask him. I said, he was trying to get it fresh. I said, so he was like, all right. He says, so I went back to Ohio. A few days later, I had gotten a call from him, and it was after the fight. And then we started dating, and I started going up to New York. And then in September, because of the school, we ended up moving in.
Right.
And he adopted Tony after that. And
Nice.
it was just.
Linda,
People have to know it. Our viewers have to know this. Linda's the type of person. Whenever she shows up, everybody's happy because she treats everybody nice. You know, it's just a pleasant person. Always pretty, always nice, and I'm happy that her and Dennis, got married and everything. It's just wonderful. And Tony's a very nice guy. And Chris is okay. I'm talking. Kenneth's okay. I'm joking. He's a great guy.
Linda, you're originally from Ohio?
I'm originally from Youngstown,
What part?
which is
Youngstown?
which is a
Boom,
big
Mancini?
boxing. So I grew up. My dad, he was involved with the Golden Gloves. He had boxers. He had racehorses.
Did he box?
recruited. No, he recruited for University of West Virginia and Notre Dame. He was a sports enthusiast. I was like a Tom girl.
What was his trade?
He was with the prosecutor's office.
The what office?
Prosecutor's office.
Oh,
Yes.
So he wasn't
I
in
think he
the
called me
Yeah,
once.
and he always had all these hobbies and so forth. And I grew up with Mancini. I grew up with Carl King, Don King. They were all affiliated. Harry Arroyo. There was some Kelly Pavlik. I was
wow.
always involved
Kelly
with boxing. Ray Mancini was a good friend.
Me and him had the
Boom
same
Boom.
birthday.
Yeah, he was a great guy. And so Youngstown was a great town to grow up in. Gave me a lot of values, and
They let you leave Youngstown?
yes,
I mean,
they
beautiful
did.
lady that's
Well, I
nice.
met Dennis, and I moved to New York.
How did you feel about moving to New York? I mean, just in general.
I mean, I was very in love with Dennis, so I was like happy, and I was so lucky to meet a man that genuinely loved my son as much as I did. So to me, that was everything.
My mom didn't like me. I'm serious. She used to bring me to the beach and give the lifeguard $5 to keep his eye off me.
Tony, Youngstown is a industrious city?
Industrial,
Yeah.
still town.
Steel Town, right?
Right.
Steel Town. Okay. How did your dad get the title boxing's flamboyant showman? What was flamboyant about him?
He used to put on a lot of acts. I know, like he used to bring on leprechauns. On one of the comes to the boxing events, right? He had Ronnie Harris with a yarmulke on there, doing some different ideas and gimmicks. He had all kinds of things. Lynn, do you remember any particulars?
Well, like this was Oleg's, one of Oleg's, with the sequins. Jerry Cooney's, one of his corner jackets over there.
Very flamboyant, very nice.
They were nothing was
Like Cooney
Everything
had,
was
Cooney had so
unusual.
much notoriety that it was a white heavyweight in America in 1980s, and you were coming off Ali, and you were coming off
Ken Norton fight.
right, Ken Norton. You were coming off Joe
Holmes.
Frazier. You were coming off George Foreman. You were coming off all these guys. Larry Holmes was a champion then, and you had a white heavyweight, and we hadn't seen a white heavyweight really since like Rocky Graciano, all these guys, and you have a ring cover magazine. You have
And Jerry could fight.
Right.
He a knockout artist.
Right.
He wasn't a bum.
Right.
Like
Jerry
now
knocked
it's
Ken
on
Norton
like
out.
Jerry who?
Yeah.
Jerry Cooney.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
knocked
he
Ken
was-
Norton out.
54
quickly,
seconds.
yeah.
I went to that. 54 seconds at Madison Square Garden in May of 1981.
Right.
I was shocked though.
How much
It
were the
took him a
tickets
year.
then?
Nah, the tickets wasn't that bad for that. Matter of fact,
$20? $10?
No, but the thing was, he didn't fight Larry till the next year. But Dennis did a fantastic job of negotiating for Jerry for that fight. He got parity with Holmes, and Holmes was undefeated champion.
I'm still trying to digest this thing we were talking about a couple of minutes ago about the purse being the same for
Right.
the fight.
Parity.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
A contender that hadn't fought for the title yet is getting the same amount as the. If you saw the HBO special though, Dennis broke it down. He said, Larry couldn't put rear ends in seats. That's exactly what he said.
Larry,
He said Jerry
even though he was good, he couldn't sell tickets.
I mean, he's a great guy like Larry, but he doesn't really have a superstar personality or anything. He wasn't knocking people out; he was beating them, but he didn't have like a knockout streak.
Dennis always made everything exciting. It was bigger than life. So anything that he touched, he always made it special. So people wanted to see the unusual. not the,
Right, exactly.
They opened up the training camps. He did a lot of marketing and TV. And also, like I said, the Rocky movie had been going at that time.
The Rocky
so
III
that
came
adds
out
a
the
lot,
same
right,
weekend.
all
It
that
was fantastic.
Linda, what made Dennis so controversial?
I think Dennis being controversial is because Dennis is one of the few people that I've met in my life that what he says he means, and what he means he says, and there's no sugarcoating. I've kicked him many times under the table with things that I was embarrassed because I couldn't believe, but that's just who he was, and now I respect that totally.
Nice.
Tell me how do you want him to be remembered by people that follow boxing, and if they look back 50, 100 years from now and say, Dennis Rappaport, what would you like to remember him as?
I'm probably going to start crying.
Oh, don't stop.
Yeah, I
We
know.
all cry.
I think that, like with his boxers and everything, he did try to protect them, and he tried to. All his boxers were so supportive after he passed away. And, they came and they thanked me for the way he managed their careers, and that meant a lot. And I think just the integrity and, I don't know. It's just, I just want him to be remembered, and people to realize that he was like a man of his word, and he changed boxing by the way that he didn't. There was a monopoly with Don King. He was taking advantage.
Yeah,
he was
he
signing
certainly
side
was.
agreements with boxers. In fact, one of my dad's fighters, he made him sign a blank contract.
Done that
and-
a couple people.
Yeah. And so, Dennis always tried to take care of, and, part of the proceeds, we were working with the WBC as far as giving back to the boxers, because a lot of times they're left broke, they're left without a future, they've gotten hit too many times because their promoters or their managers put them in with the wrong people.
Right.
And, Dennis protected, and he studied, he used to talk to Johnny Boz, and he would talk to people in the know and say, do you know anything about this guy's record? He says he's 12-2. I don't know. But he wouldn't put his fighters in harm's way. And I think that's what he should be remembered for, his integrity.
Tony,
that's beautiful.
how do you feel about him trying to buy the Yankee Stadium? Do you think he was getting over his head when he tried to do that?
It was a $181 million purchase back then.
Oh, in '89, right?
Right. And if you look today, they have Yes Network, and they're a multi-billion-dollar franchise and company, and probably have the potential to be much larger based on their TV network alone. It was a terrific opportunity to buy something. He had a couple investors that were going to go in with it back then at that time, and if he had the funds himself, he would have done it. If he could have secured the deal to happen, he would have. I think Steinbrenner kind of changed up on him, though, in process selling, didn't really want to sell.
Right.
I
I asked a question too. Are you familiar with the Dennis Trevor Berbick story?
Wow.
I probably am, but I can't recall it.
Funniest thing, Dennis told me the story, but I read it in the book, and I even heard it maybe years before I read it. Trevor Berbick had beat Franklin Thomas, so Trevor was the champion, temporary WBC heavyweight champion, and he was going to skip the HBO tournament to fight Jerry to make a lot of money. And so him and Dennis meet in Manhattan, and Trevor says to Dennis, "Okay, I'll let the fight happen, but right now you're going to give me $100,000 because that's what God just told me to tell you." So Dennis, without breaking a smile, looks up and says, "Well, when did you talk to God?" And Trevor said, "Oh, half an hour ago." And Dennis looks him straight in the eye and says, "Well, I talked to him 10 minutes ago, and he's changed his mind. He said you don't have to give any money." And I almost fell out when I heard that. That's the funniest thing
Dennis is
ever.
good. He's quick.
Yeah, he was quick. He was very
Right.
quick with that. He goes, "I talked to him 10
Right.
minutes ago, and he's changed his mind. He said, don't give you any money." And, Trevor lost the title to Tyson, and everything moved on. But Dennis did come back with Jerry to fight Spinks, right?
Mhm.
Dennis was in his corner.
87.
Yeah. Well, were you down there that day? You went to that?
That's when I met him
No,
again. That was
oh,
the second time.
that was
Yes,
the second time.
yeah,
That was the rematch.
Yeah, that was the rematch.
You know, Dennis was good because he would negotiate a purse first, right? So he'd be looking for money. You know, people kind of like have a different, tune on like why or what, or why do these things. But the truth of the matter is, if we had more ability to structure fights right financially, you'd be doing more for the fans, you'd be doing more for the location, you'd be doing more for entertainment, you'd be doing more for the venue, you'd be doing more for all opportunities that we haven't even approached to even have boxing. So, we used to try to like license out like the time clock, if you remember on HBO, or the mat, or the corners, or the clothes. Not trying to solicit or sell anything, because these weren't really our things. These are things that I noticed along the way over the years. But if you could find creative conduits to market boxing and be smart about your marketing, it just provides. Like I remember a lot of music acts used to be great when you used to come out and have a music act that would perform before the fight and do things like that. It's always fun to give the fans something, especially if there's a big notoriety name out there and performance and all that stuff.
What do you think made him stand out as a promoter manager than all the other promoter managers? What was different about him?
I think he was very, not necessarily a stickler, but if he wanted, if he saw an opportunity that he could justify his means in order to create money and to create an opportunity to get a venue going, he kind of worked that way backwards. So, location, challenger, all these things became secondary because there's so many possibilities that are out there at the time anyway.
Right.
Then you try to find your pair. So like, negotiating for purse was kind of like where to begin. And, like with King probably didn't want to hear Dennis at all talking about $10 million split, especially when he had a champion fighter. And he didn't believe much of Dennis's fighter at the time, I'm sure, as far as winning in that case. So the fact that he had to split that kind of money, it just, it's something that you never saw in boxing. The fact that you could do that, look at how big of a draw it was. You know what I mean? So he wasn't wrong.
We want to take this time to thank Linda and you, Tony, Kenny, for always being a great host. We're going to wrap up today's show about the wonderful, wonderful Dennis Rappaport and his wonderful legacy in the sport of boxing. And I personally speak for the show when I say that he was one of the nicest, greatest, most innovative people I have ever met in my life. And I thank everybody for coming here today.
I just had one more question.
We'll answer next week. I'm joking. I'm just
I had one more question. With all his accomplishments, how was he able to navigate through dealing with the con artists and the mobsters in Hollywood to accomplish what he accomplished and be successful?
He had a lot of dealings with these guys, and he had a lot of street guys, and he had a lot of guys from Philly, and Tim Witherspoon is an example. I'm not going to go into names, but like stories. But he had a couple of things. But you know what? Like Dennis was good. Dennis didn't back down.
Right.
He didn't also go to show off. He didn't try to make threats or do any of these things. And he had a driver who was like a bodyguard. Who was a good guy, Sam Garner at the time, and he had a nice group of people around him. But he tried not to get involved in all that. It sometimes surfaced around, but he still stayed out of it. He just as much as enticing could be of other things and opportunity. There was plenty of opportunity out there all the time. So I think that's what kept him focused. That stayed his course to himself, to be true to himself rather than anything else.
Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Tony.
So much for having us.
Oh, it was great. And we'll always remember Dennis for the great, great guy that he was. Thank you again.
Thanks.
We in this, let's go! It's the forgotten rock, all about boxing. Yeah, we talking about the greats, no stopping. Round and round, add up the weight. And if it's legendary, then count that pound for pound fate. From Muhammad Ali to Frazier, yeah, that's a combo. Hear the crowd roar, watch him swing like a thunderstorm. George Foreman with the grill and the power to take ya. Hit so hard, man, he just might break ya. Tyson with the fury, a beast in the ring. Shakur strategy.